This will be my reading of a book by Booker T. Washington called Putting the Most into Life. It was obtained from Project Gutenberg, who has a lot of public domain material available. Putting the Most into Life. Health, a requisite for effective living. Chapter 1. The individual who puts the most into life is the one who gets the most out of life. The first requisite for making life effective for oneself or society is a sound body. There have been many people who, in spite of weak bodies, have enriched the world by noble thought and work. There has been a long line of physically weak men who have helped the world onward. But the rule holds that the best work has been done by men and women of vigorous health. It is important that the Negro race, in its present condition, shall learn just as quickly as possible how to have good, strong, healthy working bodies, for such is dependent upon them. In the world of industry, the world of commerce, all mental activity and spiritual endeavor, no matter in what direction one's attention or energies may be turned, strong bodies are needed to meet the demand. There are a few simple rules which should serve as guideposts to those who would make the most of their physical being. One of the conditions of a good, strong working body is contact with fresh air. In the early days of this school, when we were housed in shacks and cabins, whatever else we lacked, we were by virtue of necessity abundantly supplied with air. But now that we are getting into plastered buildings with good floors and windows and doors, there is danger of suffering from poorly ventilated rooms and a lack of health-giving air. Those who live in large cities would do well to become disciples of Wordsworth, and with him learn how to know the inspiration and strength that comes from good wood and forest, the joy of intimate acquaintance with birds and flowers, the individual who has the privilege of living on the farm and coming in contact with the earth and grass and trees and real things is the individual who, provided he has an eye to see and an ear to hear, is the most envied. Next in importance to an abundance of fresh air is the habit of regular, systematic exercise. People often think that this kind of exercise costs a great deal of money, that it means costly apparatus and artificial fixtures. Not so. It requires no great outlay of time or energy for the boy on the farm to breathe deeply as he follows the plow or scatters the seed, and yet simple exercise of this kind are essential to the life of a race whose mortality from pulmonary diseases is alarming. Every boy in the machine shop knows how necessary it is to keep his machinery well oiled and in good running condition. Then, too, every such boy knows the importance of keeping every part of his machinery clean as possible. Now, your body is a machine, but how much more delicate and intricate than any made by man. How much more necessary to keep it in good running condition and absolutely clean in order that it may do its best work. In addition to pure air and cleanliness, I want to speak of the wearing of comfortable clothing as another essential to right living. I am glad to see that the world is fast getting away from the old habits that used to enslave people in this matter of dressing. The habit exercised by many wearing small shoes, for instance, until their feet were so cramped in severe pains merely to have the world think that they had small feet. What does it matter to the world whether a person has small feet or large. Whoever stops to think whether great poets, historians, the great workers in economic and religious life, men and women who have really accomplished something, had large or small feet, whether they wore 4 or 8s, or wore large or small corsets or none. I am glad to see that all people and races are getting away from that kind of thing. And I want the Tuskegee students to make up their minds to buy shoes to fit no matter what the number. We consider the Chinese ridiculous to keep their feet cruelly cramped in order that they may be small. But many of us, in somewhat less degree, are guilty of the same thing. The importance of temperance has been repeated over and over again from this platform, and intemperance in eating or sleeping is not less disgusting than intemperance in drink. The world's work is to be done by men and women of vigorous intellect, but the sound mind must have its foundation in a body which is kept clean and made comfortable by proper clothing, pure air, regular exercise, and wholesome food. No workman, however competent, can do good work unless his tools are kept in proper repair. My plea is that the young Negro students shall acquire strong working bodies to be used as tools to serve therewith their fellows and their Maker. This is the end of all living. Chapter 2. Some qualities essential to the most successful school life. The student who would put the most into his school life must first of all be happy. I do not believe it is possible for a student to accomplish very much, certainly not the most, while he is in school unless he learns to be happy in all his relations in school life. If the students are unhappy, there is something wrong with the institution, or with the teachers, or with the student body. The normal state of a student in a well-ordered institution is a happy one. It is impossible to get the most out of the life of any institution unless there is joy in working out the ideas of the institution. The student should make himself familiar with the purpose of the school to which he seeks admission, and having made the choice, he should be loyal to its traditions and purposes. The Bible teaches over and over again that freedom, without which happiness is impossible, is self-imposed restraint. That is, to be really free, we must live within the law. He who lives outside the law is a slave. The free man is the man who lives within the law, whether that law be the physical or the divine. All life is governed by law, and the student must acquire freedom by obedience to the law. The students in any institution are divided into 2 classes: the happy, contented, ambitious, hopeful ones who have faith in the institution and respect for its traditions, and the miserable, discontented, grumbling class. One class live not only within the letter, but in the spirit of the law, and are consequently happy. The second class are miserable, discontented, and hopeless because they try to live outside the law. No student can get much out of any institution who does not enter wholeheartedly into its spirit, its traditions, and its ideas. The ability to do hard methodological work is one of the prizes which every school worthy of its name offers to its students. The years at school not frequently give bent to the whole life. The student who does slipshod work at school is more than likely to lack direction in his subsequent career. But mental strength comes not as a bequest. It is a prize that must be contended for right earnestly. And dictionary, cyclopedia, textbook, and shop are tools which instructors place in the hands of students to help them win the prize. The proper use of these tools must depend finally upon the individual student. No one gets much out of life who does not make his education a real vital part of himself. Many people have education very much as a parrot has at his command a certain number of words or sentences. The words and sentences that the parrot utters are no real part of him. They are merely something tacked on to the parrot and foreign to his real natural makeup. Some people use education as they use their Sunday clothes on extra occasions only. They bring their education into play when they are in the company of others, commit a few quotations, and use big words which have no working place in their vocabulary. To try to make education a real part of oneself is the way to get the most out of one's school life. Just as the food a man eats become a part of his blood and bone, so should education become a vital part of him. Education must be digested and assimilated in order to make it significant. The student who leaves undone immediate duties because of bodily laziness is leaving happiness far behind him. Sins of commission and sins of omission alike tend to weakness. Our ability to make the world better depends entirely upon our ability to use every opportunity to make ourselves better. A largeness of life, a variety of interests, and breadth of view are among the prizes which a school offers to its students. These qualities the ignorant man does not possess. Largeness of life and breadth of vision give faith in the future. That largeness makes one person take the long view when the other is taking the short view. The largeness lifts the educated person far above the temptation to gossip about little things, above the temptation to get down into the mud and slime with which weaker individuals are smeared. To be loyal and obedient to the legislation of an institution, to make thrifty use of textbook and shop and form and every part of the school equipment is to attain the mental strength that makes for largeness of life and breadth of view. These qualities come not by observation, but they do come by conscientious work in season and out of season. They are all within reach of the student who is willing to work for them, and they are essential to real happiness. Chapter 3, a word to prospective teachers to put in the most into their work. The large problem of the teachers is not to impart knowledge and maintain discipline. The larger problem is to bring school life and real life into closer contact. With the average teacher, as with the average student, there is very little connection between the school and life as it is actually lived in every day outside the schoolroom. And as long as this is true, there will be ground for reasonable and just criticism. In the primary school, the intermediate school, and the high school, there is often little, if any, connection between life as it is lived in the shop, on the farm, in the business, and in the home. It cannot but prove a mutual advantage if the teacher can bring school life into actual touch with the life of the people about him. The interest of the parents will be increased just in proportion as they find that the teacher is making his instruction stimulate and vitalize conditions outside the school. It is difficult for the parent of the country child to note the results of education through the usual processes and channels of knowledge. Colored parents depend upon seeing the results of education in ways not true of the white parent. It is important then that the colored teacher in this generation should give special attention to bringing school life into closer touch with real life. Any education is, to my mind, high, which enables the individual to do the very best work for the people by whom he is surrounded. Any education is low that does not make for character and effective service. The average teacher in the public schools is very likely to yield to the temptation of thinking that he is educating an individual when he is teaching him to reason out examples in arithmetic, to prove propositions in geometry, and to recite pages of history. He conceives this to be the end of education. Herein is the sad deficiency in many teachers who are not able to use history, arithmetic, geometry as a means to an end. They get the idea that the student who has mastered a certain number of pages in a textbook is educated, forgetting that textbooks are at best but tools, and in many cases, ineffective tools for the development of man. Modern educators are getting more and more away from books. Now, this will be hard for the average teacher who has worked out all the problems in arithmetic and proved them by the answers in the book. But I believe that the best educational thought tends towards the study of real things, not mere books. One of the ways of bringing the school into closer touch with society is to make school surroundings, including the grounds and buildings, as homelike and as attractive as possible. The schoolrooms are in too many cases cold and barren. In schools of this sort, there is little connection between the home and the school. I believe that the teacher should study the home surroundings of his pupils and become more intimately acquainted with the parents. When teachers are able to make their schoolrooms inviting and are able to project their influence into the home life of the pupils, there will be few absentees or truants. A child cannot be expected to leave a comfortable, attractive, and convenient home to go into a dull, inconvenient, uncomfortable schoolroom, nor can it be expected that pupils will leave comfortable chairs at home and go into schoolrooms where they must sit on stools with their feet 6 or 8 inches from the floor. It is hardly necessary to say that the teacher should set the example for the students in the matter of cleanliness and neatness. The teacher who would preach against grease spots, rents in clothes, and buttonless jackets must see to it that he is himself without fault in these respects. When I go into a school and notice that the instructor has buttons off his coat, I am at once convinced that he is not the right teacher. I do not believe that there is much that the student can learn at that school that can be put into real practice in real life. I believe that the teacher should not only set an example himself, but that he should go further than this. He should see that every boy and girl in his school is familiar with the practical application of soap and water and knows the work of the toothbrush and the darning needle. Some parents may at first resent this encroachment upon their special domain, but persistence in an endeavor of this sort will finally cause the parents to look upon the teacher as a new force in the community. The average parent cannot appreciate how many examples Johnny has worked that day, how many questions in history he has answered. But when he says, "Mother, I cannot go back to that school until all the buttons are sewn on my coat," the parent will at once become conscious of school influence in the home. This will be the best kind of advertisement. The button propaganda tends to make the teacher a power in the community. A few lessons in applied chemistry will not be amiss. Take Greek spots, for example. The teacher who with tact can teach his pupils to keep even threadbare clothes neatly brushed and free from grease spots is extending the school influence into the home and is adding immeasurably to the self-respect of the home. In the schoolhouses, in the city, and in many of the larger towns and country districts, janitors do all the work of cleaning. This may be necessary in city schools where it is not possible for the children to do all the work of beautifying and cleaning the school buildings. But when all this work is done by outsiders, the children are robbed of part of their instruction, and they thus lose a very important lesson in cleanliness and order, which is the duty of the teacher to give. Think of the time lost in the average family looking for the broom when the time comes to sweep the floor. At this time, all business suspends. Mother cries out first, "Where's the broom?" The older sister cries to John and Susie and Jane, "Where's the broom?" And that kind of thing goes on every day in the week and year. It takes the average family from 10 to 12 minutes every day to find the broom. Now, we should teach a different lesson in our schools. We can teach, in the first place, that there are two ways for the broom to be put up, a proper and improper way. We can teach the children that there is a place for the dustpan and the dust cloth and the matchbox. The matchbox is another thing that suspends business. Every night when the matches are wanted, everything goes helter-skelter. This is a large problem than the broom, there being absolutely no light on the subject. The children should be taught there must be a definite place for the broom and for the matchbox. And it is surprising how quickly these lessons will be taken from the schoolroom into the home. Even the listless parent will be roused to interest by such practical teaching. The child who goes to school in a room that is clean and attractive will not long be content to live in a home that is dirty and disorderly. I was recently in a schoolroom in South Carolina. The teacher had a reputation for being a well-fitted instructor, and I expected much of him. He was teaching the children by the latest methods. The children sang well. They recited their lessons well. But the fact that 1/3 of the plastering was missing made the greatest impression on me. I could not detect the slightest attempt on the part of the teacher or students to see that the plastering was restored. I should have suspended school a day or two until the plastering could be replaced, rather than teach day after day by silent approval and lesson of disorder. If the teacher is careless, the pupils will accept his standard and go through life in an indifferent, slipshod manner. If from the first day they enter school, they are surrounded with object lessons of order and cleanliness, more will have been done to educate them in a large and helpful way than if they had centered their interest in books alone. Order and beauty are sacrificed in many of our schools. 1/3 or 1/4 of the window glass is out. Sometimes I have seen obsolete hats and discarded dresses doing duty in the absence of window glass, or window panes knocked out in order that the stovepipe might be run through the broken place. The child never outlives the impression made by such a sight. The parents will join their children in helping to patch broken plastering if the teacher will take the lead. When the plastering is mended, a few pictures should be placed on the walls, and in this work, the parents' cooperation can be depended upon. Teachers must put not less conscious but more thought into the work of the children to whose lives they are given direction. By putting into their work more of their better selves, more of their personality, teachers will add not only to their own happiness and usefulness, but will be doing real work towards hastening the coming of that kingdom for which they daily pray.